Merriam on Burn. He's playing against Jameson Perdue, and Jameson Perdue is on Zoo. Now, this is a classic matchup that, if you're a fan of Ross Merriam, this is a tough one for him.
Yeah, you know, there's a lot of the same spells in both of these decks, but one thing that's kind of telling about the rest of the matchup is one deck is Curd Ape, both decks have Goblin Guides. Well, Curd Ape's pretty impressive here. Wild Nacatl, even better than Curd Ape.
All right, Ross Merriam is going to start. He's won the die roll. He starts with Grim Lavamancer. Shocks down to 18 for that one. That one, actually, you have to watch out with your fetch lands in this match.
Yeah, you can't just bolt yourself every turn. Both decks do have 2 Lightning Helix. You can make up some of that life loss, though you have to play around opposing Skullcracks, opposing Atarka's commands. Many of those life points you're just getting pinged on.
Now for Jameson, it is a turn on Stomping Ground down to 18. That's good for Ross. It's going to be a copy of Wild Nacatl. So the Zoo player actually is one who has to be very concerned about these shock lands, right?
Yeah, and indeed both players. There's quite a lot of burn spells in both decks.
I suppose Boros Charms on both sides of this one.
Yes. The Zoo deck has a couple mutagenic growths we see in Jameson's deck.
I don't know if I want that in this matchup.
Yeah, you really need to be spending mana on them. And
right.
Then it's not even giant growth. This one's coming out in the post-sideboard games.
All right, Ross, turn 2, he plays a mountain. Now, of note, the Ross's deck has a full play set of Searing Blaze in the main deck.
That would have been huge right here.
Has nothing like it. Even Lava Spike Grim Lavamancer to kill the Nacatl. That was actually a big risk of Jameson just to run out that 2/2 Nacatl there.
Yeah, the 2/2, you know, it's a turn to get it up to a 3/3.
Yeah, it was in range of the Lavamancer, right?
Right. If you just was able to crack that fetch land, Lava Spike, you activate Lavamancer.
I mean, all Ross needed was a fetch land or a Lava Spike or anything to kill the Nacatl, but Jameson comes unscathed in that situation. Now the Nacatl's up to a 3/3.
Yeah, in that window, you know, you'd rather just be playing Curd Ape, but took a chance on Wild Nacatl, and so far he hasn't been punished for it.
And Jameson, you know, he might be playing against Burn, but it doesn't show. He's going to go ahead and take 3 to make Sacred Foundry. And he's the Searing Blaze player. It's 3 at Lavamancer, 3 at Ross.
Textless Searing Blaze.
Yeah, of all the cards to make textless, that one's actually probably a poor decision.
It's one of the poor ones. It's not Cryptic Command, but it's pretty bad.
Something you should know, even though it's textless, if Ross were to kill his own creature in response, he will still take the 3 damage.
Right, it targets the creature and the player that controls the creature. It doesn't just say its controller.
So 3 from the burn spell, 3 from the creature. Ross goes to 11, and he skull cracks Jameson back to 12.
So the Nacatl went living and getting that successful attack and the Searing Blaze on turn 2 is kind of worst possible for Merriam right here.
Yeah, boy. And now Merriam draws the fetch land. Had the option last turn to take care of the Nacatl. Would have had it had he drawn the fetch land. You see, he's now pumping some breaks. Gets a basic mountain off it.
Right. You have to imagine with the basic mountain cutting down that he's going to be using all of his mana on this turn. Step 1, if he has a Searing Blaze of his own, that would be a tremendous swing back in Ross's favor. Perdue just 4 spells from Merriam off of being dead. 3 if they were Boros Charms. Well, the mana doesn't quite line up to make that as threatening.
So here's Monastery Swift Spear from Ross. He's got some creatures of his own, and yeah, all right. I love watching Burn. All right, main phase, Boros Charm you. Jameson goes to 8. Prowess, Jameson goes to 6.
1 spell, 2 spell. We're halfway there.
He's got maybe he doesn't untap, though.
Yeah.
He's at 10, and Jameson, an attack, a Boros Charm, and a Lava Spike would do it.
Right, Perdue could certainly kill Ross on this turn. Oh, gross.
How about this? It's a Goblin Guide, a Mutagenic Growth, and a Lightning Bolt. So I count that 5 damage from the creatures, 5 damage from the spells. That sure looks like 10.
Yep, 3, 3, 2, 2, 5, 5, 10.
Hey, there's the math. And game 1 to Jameson, Perdue, and Zoo.
Yeah. Jameson, Perdue, and the Zoo. Take a game over Ross Merriam and Burn.
All right, so we go to the sideboards here. Now, typically in these sideboards, it's you want to go slightly bigger than your opponent. All right, we're going to start with Jameson's side. He's got Path to Exile, Gaddock Teague, Searing Blaze, Lightning Helix, Shattering Spree, Destructive Revelry, Gut Shot. What do you like?
Searing Blaze was great. More copies seems great. Lightning Helix is going to be a light swing in both directions. That also seems excellent. Have the option for Path to Exile. I'm not in love with it. I think that you just need to focus on killing your opponent. I don't really like bringing this card in unless you absolutely have to against something like Infect, where you just need as much interaction as possible. So mostly we're looking at those Lightning Helix and the Searing Blaze, so just the 2 cards rather.
All right, so Ross Merriam's side's got some Deflecting Palm. He's actually got more Searing things. He has Searing Bloods as well in his sideboard. Mutagenic Growth, Path to Exile, Exquisite Firecraft, and here's one I like. How about Phyrexian Unlife?
Yeah, a 3 mana gains 10 plus life. The way that your opponent ends up actually getting past the threshold to make you take infect damage, frequently they'll have to deal more than lethal to you to get you to a negative life total before they start to being able to poison you with this card. So this is a very powerful sideboard option.
I would assume it's coming in here. A spell of just 2 mana gain 10 life. Ross would actually board in right now.
Right, definitely. This one's coming in for sure. Searing Blood's kind of an awkward one.
Well, I know Ross isn't the biggest fan of Searing Blood. I know he likes it in select matchups. So tell me about this. It hits, on Perdue side, it hits Grim Lavamancer, it hits Goblin Guide, now I'm going to get to the ones that are very bold claims. It hits Wild Nacatl, it hits Curdape, it hits Monastery Swift Spear. I mean, right?
Your opponent
Those
goes
1/1s and 2
Your
1/2s.
opponent plays Mountain Curdape, you get them. If they play a turn 1 Wild Nacatl, you're on the play, you get them. I don't think we're going to see the turn 1 Wild Nacatl again out of Perdue.
Yeah.
I don't think that we'll be seeing the Searing Bloods here.
He's on borrowed time that Nacatl lived in game 1.
Deflecting Palm does kind of a Lightning Helix impression in this matchup.
Yeah, costs red-white.
Right. It's not one of those matches where the Deflecting Palm can deal like 6 damage or whatever, but it is a fine inclusion
I have
here.
tacked Primeval Titans into Deflecting Palm before. That is... It's not going to do that, but even if it does 3, that's good.
I played a match against Burn one time where my opponent killed me the last 2 spells they cast for Deflecting Palms, and they were like, yeah, that was pretty brutal. And I was like, you redirected 3 damage. Any other spell in your deck would have done exactly that.
It was a card. It was fine. It was not anything more than a card.
Right.
No, I get it. Fair enough. These players get ready for this. One thing we want to talk about is actually PAX East. That's happening next weekend. So if you know about PAX East, certainly a gaming convention, we're actually going to have the SCG Tour will be showing up at PAX East. So join us there. We'll be talking at the convention. This will be Cedric Phillips along with our current champion, Jim Davis, and our director, James Knoll, over here at SCG Live. They'll be talking about all the exciting things that SCG Live has to bring next year. So come and find us at PAX East. Jeremy's going to be doing giveaways all weekend, so you want to be following him on Twitter at Star City Games, 3 each day. So that's going to be excellent. If you can't follow that, we are also going to be streaming this on twitch.tv. So a lot of things. This is the main page, so twitch.tv/Twitch. Our talk will be 11 a.m. or 11:30 a.m. Eastern time, so that's 8:30 a.m. Pacific time.
Yeah, some exciting announcements coming out. Make sure to tune in and check that out.
Yeah. All right. 1 game's in the books for Perdue. He now is 1 game away from that top 8. For Ross Merriam, he picked up his 3rd loss 5 rounds ago. Kind of trying to complete that entire sweep. He lost rounds 1, rounds 5, and I believe it was round 9.
Putting in work to get back at it.
Round 10, yeah.
Finding himself down a game and is winning in. This is the most trying moment of his tournament.
A slightly negative matchup, I'd say, but winnable.
Certainly winnable.
I mean, they're playing a lot of the same cards. Now, in this matchup, normally they will board out something like Eidolon of the Great Revel, I believe.
Yeah, you can end up just killing yourself when you cast this spell. It's going to punish one player, and just in your deck abstractly, it's never clear which player that's going to be.
Well, it's actually, sorry, I should pause. It's okay here. On the play, it's actually worth playing.
When you play it turn 2 on the play, especially if you have a 1-drop, and maybe if your opponent doesn't, it can be excellent. But you're rolling the dice by having this card in your deck.
You're saying rolling the dice like it's a bad thing.
Oh yeah, I mean like.
So I know that. I love this.
Some people love a gamble.
No, I always hear people talk about they're like, oh man, that card's really high variance, and then I always look at them like, you say that like it's a negative thing.
Yeah, that means high upside.
High variance doesn't mean bad. It just means high variance.
You're not wrong.
My favorite mechanic, Clash. Lash out's great. It's just Searing Blaze all the time.
My favorite mechanic, Scry.
Yeah, well, there's no tension there. I liked Clash.
Did I make a good decision
Come on,
or not?
big money.
What about Cascade?
Ooh,
that one's kind of cheaty because most decks are
yeah.
just cascading into like exactly one thing, or it doesn't matter what you hit.
I mean, oh no, Demonic Dread. Whatever will we hit? It's probably Living End. No.
I was at PTQ, 100 years ago, Bloodbraid Elf was legal must have been standard with Bloodbraid Elf, and there was a player who very loudly, every time he cast Bloodbraid Elf, he would just scream, "Spin the wheel!" As if there was any.
All right.
You're gonna get money, just don't go bankrupt.
If you want to go, my favorite Cascade decks. So in Block Constructed, there was this card deck, 5-color Cascade, which was all come to play tap lands. Every card in the deck either had Cascade on it or was Esper Charm or Blightning.
Yeah, it played Enlisted Ultimatum.
Every single card was a Blightning. It was great. That's how Cascade. It's a fun deck.
Yeah.
Ross is on the play. He kept on 6 cards. He attacks with Goblin Guide on turn 1, puts Jameson shows the Wild Cattle and goes to 18. Ross had to go to 18, actually 17 to cast the Goblin Guide, so hopefully this Goblin Guide does more damage to Jameson than it does to Ross, but we'll see. For Jameson, he also has to play a Shockland and plays a Goblin Guide right back on Ross.
So Ross is starting this game down a card, and Jameson is just ahead by a life on the draw with this crackback.
Ross's top card is a Skull Crack, so 15 to 16. Both players taking a lot of damage, some of their own doing, some not. And Ross, I think he kept a 1-lander.
I think he didn't hit for the second land either.
He drew the Skull Crack.
That's not a good draw.
Right, here's Goblin Guide, hits Jameson down to 14, shows Lightning Bolt on top of Jameson's deck.
This could be over in short order.
Jameson draws the Lightning Bolt. We'll see if he has another land. He does. It's Bloodstained Mire. Does he? I wonder if he's go all the way down for the Sacred Foundry.
With your opponent missing a land drop, I think you can.
All right, yeah. Let's just take all the damage.
You're playing with fire.
He goes to he's shocking here. He goes down to 11 on this fetch. I mean, he's got Lightning Bolts in hand. Maybe he can just end this one quickly.
This is the kind of high variance that I like. I'm going to shock myself because I get the best returns over this turn and next turn, but I'm taking a calculated risk. I'm not just like putting a card that I might not want to draw in my deck.
See, Lightning Bolt would be more fun if it was 1 red. It's like deal 2 damage to any target, flip a coin if you win, deal 2 more. I like that card.
I'd play that card. If Shock were playable in the format it was legal in.
No, it's not. That's what you're targeting 3 toughness creatures with this. You just have to hope.
I would not play this card.
Jameson's turn is another Goblin Guide, a Wild Cattle. He swings. Ross draws 1 land off the Goblin Guides, but he goes down to 11, so we have 11 apiece. Jameson assembling an army here. More importantly, gets that Wild Cattle into play. At 3/3 should blank the Goblin Guide as we go back to Merriam.
So Ross picking up that land, he has some cleanup to do on the board. It won't take much for Jameson just kill him.
Ross goes to Lightning Bolt the Wild Cattle, and Jameson Perdue mutagenic growths it.
That's pretty wild.
I mean, I guess instead of Lightning Bolting the Cattle, Ross wanted to shock Jameson. Seems like a worse use of the card, though.
So on this board here, Ross has the Goblin Guide, which is definitely on blocking duty here. There are a combination of cards where he can kill Jameson if he gets another turn.
I think Jameson has 2 or maybe 3 Lightning Bolts in hand.
Okay, well, if he doesn't get another turn, that's clearly not an issue.
But, okay. And if with a card like Phyrexian Unlife, which I think he may have in his hand, there's some value for Ross?
Well, I mean, it's an enchantment that costs 3, and he couldn't cast it last turn.
So he has to survive. Now we'll go to Jameson's side. It is Lightning Bolt on Goblin Guide. That's terrifying if you're Ross Merriam, because that's actually a loss of damage on Jameson's side.
Yeah, that bolt there is a sure sign of strength. It's only going to enable him to connect with either exactly 3 with the Nicodle or 2 with Goblin Guide.
Swing for 7 deals the damage to Ross, and now here's Atarka's command. He's going for lethal. Can Ross respond? The top card was Lightning Bolt. He checks through his hand. Maybe this is pumping the team and dealing 3.
Yeah, he has to kill something here.
So if Ross kills a creature in response, he takes 3 off the Atarka's command, 6 off the Goblin Guides, he'd go to 2. He'd be alive. But just barely. And he's not Shard Volley, he's not going to do it. And he shakes hand, and Jameson Perdue, he goes to 13-3, and congratulations to him. That is his spot in the top 8 of the Invitational.
You have to imagine that Perdue's going to go have that mutagenic growth framed.
That was disgusting.